Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Prime Minister Carney strikes a historic deal with China.
I would remind Canadians, cheap has a price.
The mixed industry reaction and the risks.
How do you see the deals Canada and China have just signed?
President Trump's response to Canada's new partnership.
Sorry for the people that are going to see that. They're going to say, oh, what a baby. So, yeah, I'm a kind of a baby, a reborn, you know.
Plus, after 33 years behind bars, how a newly released man is adapting to freedom.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Mark Carney is hailing his new trade deal with China as a landmark strategic partnership, one that sets Canada up for what he called the New World Order. It means more Chinese-made electric vehicles will soon be on Canadian roads, with more Canadian agriculture and food products on Chinese shelves. There is strong reaction today from industry stakeholders, some in support with others firmly against the move. We'll cover it all, beginning first in Beijing with CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver. Annie.
Heather, Canada is entering into a new strategic partnership with China, one that Carney says will bring stability and prosperity. And a big part of that, changes to punishing tariffs on agriculture. The stalls at Beijing's busy food markets will soon be filled with more Canadian lobster, seafood and canola products after Canada and China signed what the Prime Minister is calling a landmark trade agreement.
We're building a web of new connections with China to create transformative opportunities for Canadian workers, build more stability, more certainty and prosperity on both sides of the Pacific.
As part of that deal, China will remove all existing tariffs on Canadian canola meal, lobsters, crab and peas until at least the end of the year, and permanently reduce its tariff on canola seed to 15%. The tariffs on canola oil and pork will remain.
If you're a canola farmer, you're probably cautiously optimistic that something's going to come from this because we don't know the full details. But if you're a Canadian auto worker, this is devastating news because they know that this is going to undercut North American produced vehicles.
In exchange, Canada will let 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into Canada, essentially tariff-free, increasing that amount every year after. By 2030, half of those EVs should cost a maximum of $35,000.
We need to look at this in the context of building. I mean, we're building a new part of our car industry. Building cars of the future in partnership.
The new trade pact that encourages Chinese investment in Canada's auto sector was announced hours after Carney shook hands with the Chinese president, closing the deal on a 5-pillar strategic partnership meant to tear down trade barriers and forge new ties in areas from finance to energy and tourism.
A healthy and stable China-Canada relationship serves the common interest of our two countries. It is also good for the peace, stability, and prosperity of the world.
The Prime Minister says concerns about human rights and foreign interference were brought up during his meeting with the Chinese president. Carney leaves Beijing tomorrow, Heather, for Qatar, where he will meet with businesses to try to drum up investment in Canada.
All right, Annie, thank you. Annie Bergeron-Oliver in Beijing. Among those cheering for the trade deal are Canada's canola farmers. They've been hard hit by Chinese tariffs, and news they will soon be slashed can't come soon enough for producers across the prairies. CTV's Allison Bamford spoke with one farmer about what this news means for his business. Allison.
Heather, nothing's ever guaranteed in the farming business, but producers say today's deal gives them more certainty than they've had in the last year. All week, Dean Roberts has waited to see how the Prime Minister's trip overseas would unfold.
I had an alarm set for 3 a.m. just to see what developments might come out of China today. Very happy this morning to wake up to the news.
Canola typically makes up 25% of what Roberts grows. It's often considered the cash crop that helps farmers turn a profit. But prices dropped when tariffs came into play last March.
With the trade environment we were operating under, canola couldn't be counted on, and general farm profitability is looking questionable for this year.
Some producers have been at odds with what to grow this upcoming season. Nothing looks to be very profitable with current prices, but a deal with China gives a bit of direction.
We have to plant something. We don't get paid to leave the land idle, so this provides some optimism.
Chinese tariffs on canola and peas will be lowered March 1st, and farmers are hopeful their products will be flowing back into China by the time they start seeding in April.
There's still questions around how it's all going to play out, but at least at this point, I have a little more confidence going into spring to put that crop in the ground.
Some farmers may continue to hold off on selling some of last year's crops until tariffs lift, with prices expected to improve. Heather?
Alison Bamford in Saskatoon this evening. Thanks. A less favorable reception to the trade deal with China came from Canada's auto sector. Ontario's Premier Doug Ford called it a self-inflicted wound and referred to Chinese EVs as subsidized spy cars. We'll get to the political reaction in a moment, but first, what this means for the market and consumers looking for a better price. CTV's Heather Wright now on industry reaction and the road ahead for Canadians. Heather.
Heather, there are still a lot of questions about the fine print of this deal and the impact it might have on the Canadian auto industry. But for many that we spoke with today, there are concerns.
For the roughly 500,000 people who work in Canada's auto sector, the last year has been a challenge. Today, there was mixed reaction in Windsor, Ontario, to this new trade deal.
The worst thing is it opens the door and it's a slippery slope after this.
The new deal will allow nearly 50,000 Chinese-made electric vehicles into Canada at the tariff rate of 6%. It's an abrupt departure from the 100% tariffs placed on Chinese EVs in 2024 by the Trudeau government in alignment with the United States. At that time, Ottawa justified those tariffs on the grounds that Chinese manufacturers unfairly benefited from state subsidies, making it hard for Canadian manufacturers to compete.
I would remind Canadians, cheap has a price, and that price is good union jobs, good jobs that support communities here in our country.
Donald Trump's trade war has had a devastating impact on Canada's auto sector, the majority of which is in Ontario. Plant closures, job losses, and concern about whether the industry can survive.
This just adds frankly, more uncertainty to an already uncertain automotive market in the Canadian marketplace.
Canadian EV sales have dropped dramatically in recent years with expiring rebates, the trade war, and affordability factoring into the decline. This deal stipulates by 2030, 50% of Chinese EVs would have to cost less than $35,000, a measure that would help with affordability. The agreement also requires Chinese investment in Canada's auto sector by year 3. But insiders say there are still more questions than answers.
We need more, a better understanding on how those quotas are managed, which brand are. So there's a lot of, the timeline is a big part of it as well.
There are also plenty of concerns around cybersecurity, things like software updates and data collection, how this will be managed and who will have access to this information. Heather.
CTV's Heather Wright in Toronto. Carney's trade deal with China covers more than just cars and canola. It will have an impact on other sectors, including Canada's seafood industry. But as we heard in Heather's report, it's not getting a warm reception everywhere. CTV's Rachel Aiello now with the political reaction and the economic impact. Rachel.
Heather, what Prime Minister Mark Carney is characterizing as a recalibrated relationship with China is being met with strong and split reactions from Canadian premiers and tariffed sectors.
It's just a terrible, terrible, miscalculated decision by the Prime Minister.
Ontario's premier slamming the federal government for not consulting the auto industry before agreeing to allow more Chinese EVs into Canada.
We're letting China into a market that's going to have lower tariffs than our largest market, the U.S. They're going to undermine every auto manufacturer here.
The pact Carney and President Xi made, potentially pitting parts of the country against each other. But the premier of Canada's largest canola-producing province doesn't see it that way.
The canola industry, the oilseed industry, the pulse industry is important to virtually each and every part of this country, up to and including Ontario.
Some sectors are elated about markets opening up again, while others are still waiting for relief.
While there was a deal announced for lobster and crab, there's many other species that weren't included that are subject to retaliatory tariffs. I'm thinking, cold water shrimp, sea cucumber, whelk.
We need to see the pork tariffs taken off as well.
While doing more business with economies like China may be divisive, experts today said it's key to Canada diversifying trade.
If you're going to do that on planet Earth, you're going to have to trade with China.
The new partnership also includes increasing cultural and tourism ties. Carney said Xi has agreed to allow visa-free access for Canadians traveling to China. Heather?
CTV's Rachel Aiello in Ottawa. For more on this, let's bring in our chief political correspondent, Vashi Capellos. Vashi, Mark Carney is calling it a landmark deal. It's certainly a major shift in Canada's approach to China. What are the political risks here for the Prime Minister?
Hi, Heather. Well, I would identify three primary political risks. And the first we've already heard a lot about, right? That's the domestic political risk, when you have different parts of the country feeling very differently, in Ontario, for example, and Saskatchewan, about the outcome of this trade mission. I think that will certainly continue to play out. The other risk is, of course, vis-a-vis the United States. Does this end up angering U.S. President Donald Trump? So far, his reaction has been pretty muted, but his trade representative had a much more specific and pronounced reaction in calling the agreement with China problematic. So that's another political risk the Prime Minister will have to manage. The final risk is, yes, political in nature, Heather, but also more long-term and also perhaps more economic and from a security perspective. What does China do with its new power in this relationship? Its track record over the last 10 years with Canada has not been a positive one. Do things actually change? If they don't, that's a big risk for the Prime Minister. Heather?
Vashi, thank you for your insight. As we just heard from Vashi, all eyes were on Washington, anticipating a less than favorable response from the U.S. president. Let's bring in CTV's Washington Bureau Chief, Joy Malbon. Now, Joy, what did Trump have to say about Carney's trade deal?
Well, Heather, talk about mixed messaging today in Washington. You've got the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer telling CNBC that Canada's deal with China was, quote, problematic, and that it could further fray the economic relationship. But then you've got President Donald Trump surprisingly having a much different reaction to Prime Minister Carney's deal to import Chinese electric vehicles. Have a listen.
That's okay. That's what he should be doing. I mean, it's a good thing for him to sign a trade deal. If you can get a deal with China, you should do that.
So, Joy, we know that the president always has a few speaking points in one day. What else did he have to say today?
The president never ceases to surprise. What's on his mind? What else? Greenland. There's this global obsession he has with the Arctic island. Now he's threatening to tariff countries that oppose his plan to take over the Arctic island. A delegation this week from Denmark and Greenland tried to convince the White House otherwise, but Trump's not letting go of this, and he is dead serious. In fact, he hasn't even ruled out using military force. Here's what he said today.
NATO has been dealing with us on Greenland. We need Greenland for national security very badly. If we don't have it, we have a big hole in national security. We have got the strongest military in the world, and it's only getting stronger. And you saw that with Venezuela. You saw that with the attack on Iran, with the knocking out their nuclear capability potentially. So, yeah, we're talking to NATO.
Heather, U.S. lawmakers, Republicans and Democrats are in Denmark today telling officials there that Americans don't want this. That's what the latest polls say, and that they will push for legislation to try to rein in the president's global ambitions. Heather?
All right, Joy. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief, Joy Malbon, for us. Thanks, Joy. The Federal Court of Appeal says the Trudeau government's use of the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy protests was unreasonable. The court dismissed the government's appeal today of a 2024 ruling. For about 3 weeks in 2022, a section of downtown Ottawa was blocked off by protesters, including many in large trucks around Parliament Hill. The protests challenged pandemic restrictions and vaccine mandates. The federal government responded by invoking the Emergencies Act, granting additional powers to clear blockades and freeze bank accounts. The Public Safety Minister's office says it's reviewing the ruling. A change of course from WestJet. The Canadian airline is grounding changes to its cabin configuration after some negative feedback.
Dad, can you just straighten out your legs there? Impossible.
That online video went viral earlier this month, showing the cramped leg space in the new densified cabins, where passengers said they felt uncomfortable and unsafe. WestJet says following a review of data and feedback from guests, the airline will return to its standard seating arrangement for economy cabins by removing one row of seats. Daniel Jolivet is now settling into a new life after spending 33 years behind bars. He is on parole after a report from the Crown Prosecutor's Office found he could have been the victim of a miscarriage of justice. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin met him for an exclusive interview in his new home. Geneviève.
Yeah, Heather, when we last visited Daniel Jolivet, he was behind bars. Now he has a place of his own and he let us in.
This is it. Come.
Daniel Jolivet is rediscovering freedom.
Oh my God, the first night I slept like a baby in there.
Savoring the comforts of home in his one-bedroom apartment.
That's my place, you know. Nobody can throw me out or nobody can lock me, you know. Nobody can say, stand up, it's the count, and nothing like this, you know.
Jolivet was convicted of a 1992 quadruple murder. He's now on parole, continuing his fight to clear his name.
I just press the button to open it, to get the screen there, and that's it. I don't know how to work it.
Fast-forwarding 33 years is overwhelming. Jolivet's lawyer and some devoted supporters show him the ways of the world now.
We wanted to buy like a shirt, or it's like, oh my God, did you see the price? I'm like, Danielle, this is not expensive. You know, this is like a really regular price, you know, for that shirt.
They also provide much-needed financial support.
They really do care for me, I know that. And they know that, I know. I'm sorry for the people that are going to see that. They're going to say, oh, what a baby. So, yeah, I'm a kind of a baby, a reborn, you know.
Jolivet is applying for old age security, planning to get his driver's license.
So you've got a full agenda, I see.
Yeah.
And he says he's wasting no time on being angry for the years he lost.
What, I'm going to be sitting here and, you know, be like this, talking, thinking about those people that did wrong to me? No. I just want to see if it's dry.
Still, his lawyer says Jolivet's case is a stark reminder for those in the justice system.
You're working with the life of people, with the freedom of people. And if you do a mistake, well, you know, it's not just something that you just can correct the next day.
I'm starting a new life, kind of. But at 68 years and a half there, it's a bit late, but it's never late.
The next step is a decision from the Minister of Justice as to whether Jolivet will get a new trial or the file will be sent to the Court of Appeal. Heather.
Geneviève, thank you. Still ahead, goodbye to the Blue Jays. Baseball star Bo Bichette's new metropolitan destination and how much he's getting paid after the break. A teenager has died after falling from a chairlift at a ski resort in BC. Emergency services were called to the Cypress Mountain Resort northwest of Vancouver around 7:30 last night, but the 18-year-old from Maple Ridge was pronounced dead at the scene. The RCMP says there were no obvious signs of technical or mechanical issues with the chairlift. They say all available evidence points to this being a tragic accident. Some good news for Calgarians. Officials say a damaged feeder main has been repaired and the city's 18-day water crisis is over.
We've been monitoring the pipe, and as of this afternoon, the system remains stable. That means we are now able to lift all water restrictions effective immediately.
But Calgary's mayor warns that the water line is terminally ill and will have to be taken out of service again in the spring and fall for more repairs and eventual replacement. The Blue Jays appear to have struck out in their effort to keep an all-star. Reports from baseball insiders say Bo Bichette has signed with the New York Mets.
He hits it high in the air to deep center. It is gone!
That massive home run came in the heartbreaking Game 7 of the World Series against the LA Dodgers. The reported deal is worth $126 million over 3 years. Bichette is usually a shortstop, but is expected to play third base for the Mets. The two-time All-Star debuted with the Jays in 2019 and has led the American League in hits twice. And that news follows another swing and a miss as coveted free agent Kyle Tucker chose not to sign with the Jays. Instead, the former Chicago Cub is joining the high-spending Dodgers on a 4-year, $240 million deal. After the break, taking pride in inventory. The Buy Canadian big boost on the East Coast. The appetite to buy Canadian is still strong, and on the East Coast, it's showing up in what stores are choosing to carry. Atlantic retailers and makers gathered in Charlottetown today to talk product, prices, and what sells. CTV's Maria Saru is there to see what's on offer. Maria, how's it going?
Heather, the PEI Craft Trade Show is busier than ever with the push to keep products local, helping artisans stay afloat even in the off-season. Browsing table after table of Atlantic-designed products, retailers from across the region are here to sample, scout, and place orders.
We're here just to support local and try to brand more into local products.
That motivation to buy Canadian and buy Atlantic has been a big boost for businesses like Kim's Beachy Designs, which saw its best year yet in 2025.
For not just myself, but I noticed talking to other people that have these small businesses that they all noticed a big jump in their business last year.
The PEI Craft Council's trade show gives makers a chance to get their goods into shops across the East Coast. And for many, making connections here at home has never mattered more.
A lot of our makers used to ship to the United States, but because of the tariffs, they don't. So it's really important for them to make more alliances in the region.
There's lots of interest in Tyne Valley teas at Carol Rubinski's booth, but she says the challenge isn't just shipping product out, but getting supplies in.
Shipping costs had gone up, so when I get the teas in, I have to mark up the price a little bit more.
Beyond transport, costs are up across the board, says woodworker Adam Kenny here from New Brunswick.
But fortunately, it's a maritime trait to be resilient.
That resilience is on the top of shoppers' minds too.
The customers that show up at my store, they want PEI made.
The choices made here will shape what locals and tourists see on the shelves this spring and summer, stretching the Buy Canadian movement further into 2026. Heather.
Maria, thank you. And certainly no shortage of creativity on the East Coast. That is our newscast for this Friday. I'll be back later tonight with CTV National News at 11, and you can catch us on Crave. For ongoing coverage of Canada's top stories, tune in to CTV News Channel. I'm Heather Butts. Thank you for watching.